What is up, guys? As you can see by the title, I'm doing an LS swap. This is my daily driver, or it was, until my timing belt blew. It broke and the pistons hit the valves and this engine is toast. Now, I always wanted to do an LS swap in this rig here because, I mean, it's always needed more power. Once I put the 35s on it, it's always needed more power. So that's where the LS comes in. I actually have already bought a donor vehicle. I'm going to show you guys the cheapest way to do an LS swap on whatever you're doing it with. I'm going to buy a donor vehicle. I've already bought one actually, and we're just going to go from there. This video is going to be a combination of doing an LS swap on whatever car you want to do it on, and also doing one specifically on a Mitsubishi Montero. Now, all of the Monteros are basically the same from 1992 up to 2000. They're all basically the same underneath the body, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it. There is a forum that I've seen. It's on one of the Australian Pajero websites, forums, and he went in depth on doing a 5.7 liter swap out of a Holden Commodore or Holden, one of those. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's a GTO here. And he put a 5.7 in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the entire drivetrain out of a Suburban, a 5.3 liter iron block with a 4L60E and an NP 246 transfer case, and that's going straight into my Montero. Now what you get with that swap is obviously more power. It makes 285 horsepower, and you can make a ton more if you really want to. I might end up putting a cam in this. I am not quite sure yet, but you can always do that. And you're also getting a lower low range, actually. I believe the low range in the Montero is a low 2s or a high 1 point, like a 1.9 or something like that. Transfer case low range ratio. Now on the NP246 in the Chevys, it's a 2.72 to 1. So that's going to give me a better crawl ratio, which is needed with the 35s already. And the first gear is actually shorter in the 4L60E than it is in the Montero. So you're basically just getting a lower range, and you're getting a higher fourth gear or overdrive. So you're going to cruise better on the freeway. It's probably going to get better gas mileage than it did with the 3.5. It's going to be a daily driver again. I'm going to get all the gauges working, and it's just going to be like it came with it. If you guys want to stay tuned for that, I'm going to show you the cheapest way to do an LS swap on any car. I have an OEM tensioner right here. I actually had a cheaper tensioner in this car, and that blew within about a month, so I decided that I was going to spend $150 or whatever it was to get a OEM one, and this one blew. You can see it's a little wet in there on the seals, but it smells like hydraulic fluid. This is an OEM one, and it blew, and that caused my timing belt to snap. Now I had my music pretty loud when it did that, so I didn't really hear anything. That's why, if I would have heard it, I would have known it's a timing belt, but I didn't hear anything, and that's the reason for me swapping it out. If it was running good, I'd probably still have it in there until it blew, but it blew now, so now I'm going to do it. I have 2 projects, and I actually have a donor car coming in, being delivered here, hopefully this week. Now the first thing you want to do with this is you want to undo all of the wiring that you can. Everything you can see. You can get the throttle cable, all of these vacuum lines around here, and all of the harness on the top. That's a decent amount of it. And you got to get fuel lines. I'm sure there's more wiring on the back side of the engine or on the sides. Now since I took the whole front of the engine apart to check, because I thought it was a crank sensor, so I was going all the way deep into this thing, and I saw the timing belt was broken. So I already had to take off the AC compressor and the alternator and the power steering pump. So if you guys haven't done that, you're probably going to have to get the AC evacuated, and I mean, there's probably more wiring onto that stuff over there. But since mine's all off, I'm just going to take the bare engine out, and I'll deal with that AC and everything else later. And this car had 209,000 miles, but it was probably closer to like 215 because I've had bigger tires for 2 years now, and that changes the ratio of the speedometer and all the odometer and all that stuff. So it's probably closer to 215 than it is to 209. This should have lasted a lot longer than that. The engine was running perfect before the timing belt blew, which is a bummer because I really like this car for what it was. I always wanted a V8 in it, so it's finally getting a V8. I will admit, I kind of dropped the ball on filming a lot of this stuff. It's been raining a lot, so it's been kind of spotty me working on it and doing all that stuff. So it's kind of in between the rain, I'm working on it. And those last couple clips were from probably a month and a half ago when my car first broke. I ended up, like I said, I bought a donor vehicle, and it's a 2001 Suburban with the 5.3 and 4L60, four-wheel drive, everything. So this is the Suburban I bought. It's an 01. I've actually already started parting it out. It's been about a month since I've had it. Got the engine out of it. I'm sorry I didn't film any of this stuff because when I got it, I bought it at an auction and it said that it was running and driving. And we all know how that goes. So of course, when it showed up at my house, it was not running or driving. I thought maybe, it cranked over a few times. I thought maybe it was the starter, but it wouldn't crank over anymore. Usually these engines will start right up. I mean, they're pretty damn reliable. We've had 4 or 5 of that same generation Suburban. Right now we have 2 of them. We have this Silverado and we have my mom's Yukon. This has 270,000 miles, that is 280,000 miles, and they both run fine. The donor car I bought had 212,000 miles and it crashed into a ditch. So I mean, there was mud everywhere, a lot of water, obviously got all in the car. Not inside of it, but underside of it. And I charged up the battery and everything, maybe it was that, tried to jump start it multiple times, and it would not crank over anymore. So I thought maybe the starter was bad, so I started taking everything apart. I tried to crank over the engine by hand, and that thing was totally locked up, totally seized. So that's another reason why I didn't film a lot, because that kind of made me angry, because I ended up spending more money than I wanted to on the car to begin with. But I am showing you the cheapest way to do it, alright? So don't buy a car at auction, and if you do, go check it out, make sure it runs before you buy it. I bought this for, I think it was like $425, but after auction fees, and I had to get it delivered because I don't have a car trailer, and it was like 2 hours away, it came out to be like $930. So $930 for a non-running Suburban, not a real good deal. But since I've been selling some stuff off it, made probably $400 from that, and there's still the interiors left, and those seats usually go for a decent amount. But yeah, that's another reason I didn't film too much. I was just angry that I got a bad deal and I kind of got screwed over. But I ended up rebuilding the engine, so it got all new bearings, rod bearings, crank bearings, rings, everything. It's basically a new engine, so that kind of gives me peace of mind that it's not going to seize up or anything again. But now I have a 5.3 that is going to run. I have all the wiring for it, and I have a transmission and a transfer case that looks like it's been replaced before. It was missing a bell housing bolt on the top, one of the hard ones to get to, so that makes me think that it was taken off at some point and they weren't able to put it back on. So I have all of that. I made a standalone harness for the 5.3 and the transmission, and the transfer case is actually electronically controlled, so I had to make a standalone kind of push button thing. I took out all of the wiring from the Suburban. I can show you guys. But yeah, I got all the engine wiring and the transmission wiring sorted out. I just need to make a fuse box for it. But this is the interior of the Suburban. So if you're looking at doing this with the push button 4-wheel drive, this is what your dash is going to look like. Now this dash was probably the most stupid thing to take apart. A lot of it is like riveted. It's riveted in, so I had to drill out a bunch of rivets, and I mean all this. There's a 4-wheel drive transfer case module in there, a little computer thing got to pull out, all sorts of stuff. And the switch is up here. Cut all these wires, but now I've actually used a lot of these for wiring the harness, like fuse box and stuff that I haven't quite done yet. But I have a lot of spare wire now, which is good for that. That's where we stand on it. The engine's out of the Montero. That was pretty straightforward. It's just, I mean, it's an engine. There wasn't as much wiring on it as I thought there would be. So I got that all taken out. Transmission came out pretty easily. I took out all the wiring from this car. That's also really easy. You just have to, there's a computer in here. It's a mess in here too, of course. but there's a computer in the passenger side compartment, and there's plugs that go straight up, and there's wires that go out to the engine through the firewall right here. So you unplug all those wires, pull them out from the firewall all the way out here, and then there's plugs, yeah, straight up, and you want to unplug all those, like stuff like this, you know. You want to unplug all of those, and then your whole engine wiring and your ECU comes out. And now the good thing about these Monteros is that the interior is completely separate from the exterior. So all the interior stuff still works, even if you take all of that wiring out. All the windows still work, the radio works, the interior lights, everything works, the seats. The only thing that the engine actually controls would be the gauges, and that's fine because the LS harness that I made has outputs for all those gauges. Yeah, so that's where we stand on the projects right now. I'm going to get the engine mocked up. Hopefully I can get that on video this time. The sun's actually coming out today, which is great. It was raining about 20 minutes ago before I started this. But yeah, once I get the engine out, I actually rebuilt it in my basement because that's the only like dry place it's not gonna get rusty or anything. So I put it in the basement, got the heaters on in there. It was nice. All right, got it all rebuilt. So I'm gonna pull it out today probably during the sun and drop it in and see what we can do. Alright guys, so this is my 5.3. I actually painted it. It's an iron block. I just painted it silver so I could see if it leaks oil or something, but it's all rebuilt. And I'm going to put it in as a long block just to make sure, see what fits and what doesn't fit. I'm pretty sure it will fit in here. The hardest part is going to be the length. We're going to put the radiator and the fans and all that stuff, but we're going to find that out right now. Well guys, the engine did not fit in here, so I mean, I was kind of expecting that. It won't fit from the top. So the way I'm going to do it, and the way the guy in Australia who's actually done this swap, he did it with 5.7, but what he did was chop the core support right here, and he brought the engine in from the front. So he just kind of drove in, boom, put the engine in there like that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to chop it right here, and we'll build it back in, removable. So if I ever need to take the engine out again, be able to remove it. So basically what needs to come out is the AC condenser back in there, the AC, the fan thing, oil cooler, and the trans cooler all need to come out. Maybe not so much the trans cooler actually, because it's pretty low. I kind of want to keep this part intact, but this is just going to be able to come in and out. So that's what I'm going to do now. There's some wiring that goes across, and it's just starting to rain now, which is awesome. And I work outside because this won't even fit in our barn. So, yep, just going to take everything off that needs to come off here, and then we'll chop it, and then we'll drive the engine in, and we might even be able to hook the transmission up to it and do it like that. So, we'll see. Alright, so I got most of it taken out. Got the AC condenser out, the oil cooler. I actually did take the trans cooler out because it was kind of in the way. The AC fan, all that stuff. Now an LS is about 27 inches wide, so I think this is going to be enough. I can be able to lift it over this. That way you don't got to rebuild the actual, what you see, you know, on the outside of the car. It's just the inside. So 27 inches. And we're looking, where I'm going to cut is looking like about 31 inches. So I'm going to cut right out here. This inside part is kind of tricky. That's 24 inches. So I think if I bring it in just high enough and then drop it down, it'll be perfect. So I'm going to start cutting this right here, and we'll go from there. I do have some wiring on top, but I think it'll be able to droop down if I pull it hard enough. So we'll get going on that. Alright, I got this all marked out to cut. It's going to be pretty rough. I'll be able to fix it later if it's more, yeah, just a rough cut. Alright, got the core support cut out. This is pretty straightforward. Just cut it out. That's what I did. I hate to cut it at an angle because there's another pretty hefty piece of metal here if you don't want to cut it out. I mean, I think it'll fit in like this. This wiring loom kind of dips down. Hopefully I can get it down low enough. I think the engine will fit in here like this. So yeah, just cut it off here. Pretty easy. I actually went and measured the engine, and it's more like 24 inches without manifolds on it, and that's how I'm going to put it in. It was just barely not fitting before, so right now it should be good. So we're gonna put it in. This is like my one sunny day. It actually didn't start raining, so happy about that. We'll get the off-road engine hoist going, and we'll bring the engine out. All right, it's just starting to rain here, and we got the engine in it. Here it is in the Montero. As you can see, I mean, it's not lined up or anything. It's just sitting on blocks. I still have to modify the Montero engine mounts for it. It needs to shift just a little bit. I mean, it's not perfect in there, but this is the size, basically. This is kind of what we're getting at. I have enough room to get the spark plugs on either side. A little harder on this side, of course, but headers will fit easy. Everything's good here. Like I said, yeah, it needs to move over about 1 inch this way, and the back will kick out a little bit. And there's plenty of room up top. The truck intake comes out about this high, so plenty of room anyways, and it's looking real good. Like I said, yeah, I had to cut out all this stuff. Not a big deal. The wiring wasn't hard to move around at all, but it's looking awesome in here. That's going to be it for this video. Tune in next time. I'm going to make some engine mounts, and I'll have the engine mounted in there, and I'll modify the Montero transmission mount to accept the 4L60E, and that's where I'm going to leave you guys off this time. So stay tuned for more LS swap Montero content.